Hey guys, before I start the podcast, a quick introduction. My name is Warnith and I'm the founder of PETSALES Marketing. PETSALES Marketing is a marketing agency that specifically works with pet businesses. Over the years, we have worked with pet food brand, pet relocation businesses, pet SaaS companies, pet clothing brand, cat food businesses, dog grooming services, and many other product and service-based pet businesses globally. Our services includes everything from creating graphics to running your ad campaign. Not only that, we have built amazing websites and apps for pet businesses. So if you have a pet business and would like us to help grow it, click on the first link in the description to book a call with our team. Now enjoy the podcast. Welcome back to Pet Brand Podcast. I'm your host Warnith, and this is the show where we deep dive into the world of pet business, innovation, and passionate entrepreneurs shaping the future of the pet industry. Today, we have an exciting guest with us, Aaron Taylor, the founder of PETSALES, Australia's first dedicated online marketplace for pet sales. Aaron's journey into the pet industry is nothing short of inspiring. So basically, he saw a major gap in the market and decided to create a platform that makes pet adoption and sales safer, more ethical, and easier than ever. So in this episode, we will explore Aaron's journey, what makes pet sales unique, and how the platform ensures responsible pet ownership, and what the future holds for pet sales in Australia. So let's get started, Aaron. Welcome to the Pet Brand Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Great, amazing, amazing. So yeah, let's get started from the beginning. Like every great business starts with a story, right? Like can you tell us about your background and like what led you to start pet sales?
So I was up until about June of last year, I was working for a global finance business
Wow.
in a senior executive role, and I, like a lot of people, unfortunately, during this cost of living crisis, I got made redundant,
Okay.
and I was lucky enough to receive quite a decent payout. And I was just trying to work out what I wanted to do, with my life moving forward. And, I decided that I didn't want to answer to anyone else anymore, because I figured that I'm not a yes person. I'm not someone that just sort of can just do what I'm directed to do. I was trying to find a better way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I decided that I was going to work for myself, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And
Mhm.
in Melbourne, I was driving down, we have this terrible road called Hoddle Street, and I drove past the car sales building. Now, for those of you who don't know what car sales is in Australia, if you want to buy or sell a car, you go to car sales.
Okay. Mhm.
Is the leading marketplace for cars. It was created in 1997 by Greg Roebuck
Wow.
for $50,000. It's now a $14 billion company.
Wow.
So it's taken off. And I drove past that the office, and I was thinking to myself, so we've got car sales and we've got realestate.com, because that's where people in Australia go to buy or lease property.
Yeah.
And I was like, where do we go to get pets?
Hmm.
We've got no dedicated site for pets. We've got Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace, but unfortunately they're rife with scams.
Yeah.
In fact, I get probably 2 or 3 emails a week from people saying that they've been scammed 5 grand,
Yeah,
6
yeah.
grand.
Basically, there is
Um,
no way to regulate it, right?
the government has tried to regulate it in some areas,
Hmm.
but it's not that. It's not one of those areas that they're having, I guess, the right legislation in place at this point,
Hmm.
because other sites and marketplaces aren't required to have stringent onboarding processes at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I went home and I did my due diligence, and I researched to see who owned Pet Sales, and Car Sales actually owned it. So they'd owned the domain for, I think it was about 20 odd years.
Hmm.
And after about 2 months of negotiating, we were lucky enough to secure the domain. And then from there, the journey sort of, I guess, was born or was started.
Hmm.
And I knew that I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of understanding of what the current market situations are, where the current gaps are.
Hmm.
And what we've tried to do is we've tried to close those gaps in the market by utilizing or leveraging off against other gaps in the market. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a 2-for-1 special, I suppose.
Hmm. Definitely. And like, but I imagine like building an online marketplace requires a mix of both like business acumen and technical expertise, right? Like, how has your experience in the past with business or technology influenced the development of pet sales?
So, look, I've been in the corporate world in one way or another since I was 17. I
Wow.
started in real estate, and I did real estate sales for 12 years. And
Mm-hmm.
then the global financial crisis hit. I took a step out of that and I went into the automotive industry selling paint protections and window tintings.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went out of that. I went into health and fitness. I managed gyms for about 5 years. And then I went into property investment and then into the finance, which was foreign exchange. So I guess there was quite an exposure across a number of different corporate businesses where I got to see how different groups of people, different business structures worked. So that gave me, I guess, quite a good basis or a foundation to start from.
Yeah.
But everything else, right from marketing to
Mm-hmm.
SEO to everything, I have taught myself over the last 8 months. I
Wow.
think I've done about 2,500 hours in like the last 8 months.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. So is this just you, or do you have like a co-founder or somebody else who is partnered up with you?
No, I have a business partner,
Uh-huh.
and she is assisting me as well. And then I have some shareholders, and then we're in the process at the moment of trying to secure some um, large scale funding. So
Uh,
unfortunately, the
mhm.
investors they are happy to put money in when they see a tangible product, and it's that age old, which comes first, the chicken or the egg. We need
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
cash to finish the product off. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we've secured some funds. We're just finding out about that next week. That will finish off the website,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can then start moving into the next stage, which is the pre-launch stage.
Yeah, yeah, love it, love it, love it. Talking more about pet sales concept and vision, like online pet marketplace as existed before, like you shared, right? But they all have their strength and weaknesses. So, what do you think? Like, what makes pet sales different from other pet marketplaces in Australia?
So first of all, there's no other marketplace out there that can call themselves the safest, um, because there are some other ones out there, don't get me wrong, that do offer some levels of onboarding security.
Hmm.
So I don't want to disparage everyone and say that they haven't made an attempt. Our onboarding suite is going to be provided by a company called LexisNexis.
Okay.
So they are quite a large company here in Australia, and the onboarding process actually from the moment you go onto the site,
Mm.
you can scroll through the listings, but you can't do any interactions. To do any interactions, whether you're a buyer or a seller,
Mm.
you have to register. So when you register, it starts off that it asks you to take a biometric scan of your face.
Okay.
Now, that's not just one single photo. It takes a rapid succession of photos in the space of about 10 seconds so
Wow.
that there's no deep fake possibilities.
Mm.
And then you have to take a picture of your passport or driver's license. So it's only Australian residents or people with Australian IDs that can actually register to use the site, which is going to cancel out people that are doing the scans from overseas.
Mm.
And then it does a check against the national ID database, so the government issued database. From there, it does a further KYC check, an anti-money laundering check, a
Wow.
national global, or sorry, a global animal cruelty check. So if you've ever had any dealings with animal cruelty, any charges, any publications about you anywhere in the world, it will flag. And then it does a IP versus email address 10-year check to see how long your email has been registered against your either phone or laptop or tablet.
Wow.
So it does all those checks in about 15 seconds,
Mm.
and it then calculates a risk profile percentage. If it's over a certain risk profile, it gets sent to us for human verification. If it's all good, then it goes on to the next stage where you select if you're a registered breeder, an individual seller, or a buyer. So then it starts the next stage of the process.
Wow, crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and like let's say like I'm the first time user, let's say, looking to adopt a pet through pet sales. So like how would that process look like through like a typical, can you walk us through like how a typical pet adoption or purchase would work on your platform?
Yeah. So with the adoptions, we're putting a link there so that people can go through to all of the shelters, animal welfare leagues, RSPCA. We
Mm.
won't be facilitating any of those ourselves. But we will be obviously campaigning for it because we do agree that people should be adopting rather than shopping. But in Australia, obviously, a lot of people do still want to have their own. They do want to have a puppy or a kitten or whatever the situation might be. And they want to do it right from the very beginning, which I understand. So I guess it's about working with what we currently have and trying to make it better. And if you're a buyer, you basically go onto the website. In the top right hand corner, you click login or account.
Yeah.
It brings up the page and then it asks you if you'd like to register with your email or Google. You select either one, and then it just straight away takes you into the welcome to pet sales. Let's start with your security check.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
then it goes into that process from there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After that, if you're a buyer, it then prompts the AI matchmaker. So it then
Oh,
brings up at the end of that, it then says, are you a registered breeder, an individual seller, or a buyer? You click buyer. The next part, it will say, we're going to do your lifestyle questionnaire. So it's a series of 12 questions which ask you every facet of your lifestyle from, how many hours a week do you work, what your activity levels are, are you an
mm,
affectionate person? What do you do on weekends? Do you go, are you someone who goes out on a weekend? It just asks this variety of questions. The questions have been put together to mix against all the traits or characteristics of certain or all breeds of animals, especially dogs.
mm,
And as you're scrolling through the site, the algorithm through the AI actually starts calculating a risk profile percentage. And so let's say you land on a German Shepherd, you really, really like it, you want to have a look at it. If you're on that page for about 30 seconds or more, the algorithm will calculate and it will do a pop up, almost like a reverse Tinder that
mm.
says, this isn't a match if you work 80 hours a week and live in an apartment and you're looking at a German Shepherd.
Wow.
And it'll give a reason why. It'll say, like, the German Shepherd requires 20 hours a week of walking, for example. You aren't able to facilitate this. If they still decide to go and message the breeder or the individual seller to inquire about the animal, it will send the breeder or seller an email saying this person has flagged that they are not suitable for this type of animal. So
Wow.
we can't stop the sale from happening, obviously, but we can do
Mm,
everything in our power to assist with responsible pet ownership. And one of
mm.
those things is, I guess, making people understand or realize that this isn't a fear of missing out sort of situation. It's not an emotional situation. Yes, there's emotions involved,
Yeah.
but our overarching logic really needs to come into play. And in Australia last year, there was about 112,000 animals that were dumped or rehomed in the first 6 weeks of ownership. And, it cost
Mm.
the Australian taxpayers $337 million to put them through shelters. And shelters
Wow.
are overcrowded.
Yeah.
They're turning animals away. So um, that's our first step to try to assist with responsible pet ownership.
Mm.
And from there, they can then start going through and scrolling through the listings. Now, if you're a registered breeder, to be classified as a registered breeder, you have to be registered with an organisation that qualifies as a sort of registered breeding organisation in Australia, depending on what state you're in. And we actually will do integration with them so that your source codes or whatever numbers you have, depending on what state you're in, they will actually get validated against that. So if you don't have that validated number, you can't actually go into the registered breeder section. You would have
Mm.
to log in as a individual seller. Now, the reason that we've done that is when I did my long journeys out to talk to all the breeders and I went on the road, they said that, they were getting a bit frustrated that they were trying to do the right thing and they were complying with legislation,
Yeah.
but then they were selling in the same market at the same price as people who were doing the wrong thing, in inverted commas, in a gray area.
Yeah.
And so that's our attempt to try to assist, because what
Mm.
we're also going to do in that section with individual sellers is we will put a price
Mm.
that we will go through every year and update depending on, popularity, inflation, whatever the situation is. And if
Wow.
they list higher than that price, it will actually say this is above the market price.
Yeah.
So really trying to give buyers an understanding of what's in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as a registered breeder, your account looks very different from an individual seller, because you can go through and you can put in your color schemes, you can put your own logos in there
Yeah.
for your ads and stuff, so you can personalize a little bit more. So we're trying to really push the focus towards registered breeders.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, crazy. I
Cool.
mean, I think like I've never heard about a platform like this. This is just so unique. This is, I think it's like pretty much like in the entire world. I'm hearing this for the first time.
I've tried to take the best of that's what's already out there, like, for example, car sales and realestate.com, and really try to
Yeah.
um,
To
give
personalize it
back.
for the pet industry.
Yeah. And what I've
Mm.
also looked overseas at what's available overseas,
Yeah.
what's going well, what's missing, and just try to really, feel that gap, I suppose. And I mean, we're fairly lucky because we've had some really good traction.
Mm-hmm.
Big Outdoor Advertising, gracious, and assisted us with $250,000 worth of billboard advertising.
Wow.
We've got Pet Cover, which have signed on to do our insurances. So they will offer all dogs and cats sold on the platform a complimentary 4 weeks of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Dog Tainers will be doing our logistics. So they've been around for 40 years in Australia. They're very trusted.
Wow.
And we're in the process of talking with another company to come on and do our 24-hour vet servicing as well, which will
Wow.
form part of the aftercare network.
Hmm.
Um, so we're making some really good strides. We've got some really good brands and companies supporting us as well. So we're really appreciative.
Definitely, definitely. And like moving forward, like I also think like navigating legal regulation is often one of the biggest challenges for new platforms, right? So are there any like specific regulation in Australia that you need to navigate while running pet sales?
There are, but there aren't as many as what you would think there are. So
Mhm.
it's state by state dependent. And I have basically gone out and reached out to, so in Victoria, the Pet Exchange Registry. They work alongside the Department of Agriculture, and they sort of create the legislation around listing animals online. So, for example, in Victoria, you need to have a source code and a microchip number.
Mhm.
So you can't advertise a puppy or a kitten or anything online without the source code and the individual microchip number,
Okay.
unless it's an expression of interest listing when the animal is still in utero, which
Mhm.
we will have as well. We will have expression of interest listings with register your interest on there, so that we can also try to remove some of this scarcity or fear of missing out mentality where people see the animal's been microchipped at 6 weeks and then they've got 2 weeks to make a decision. Because I don't think that's responsible pet ownership at all. I think that's fear of missing
Yeah.
out.
So I don't like sustainability in business often comes down to a strong revenue model, right? So like what is the business model behind pet sales and how will it generate revenue?
So it's, I guess, the main source of revenue will come from its listing basis,
Hmm.
which we have tried to price as competitively in the market as what we can. So I looked at other platforms that were currently in existence, like car sales. Once again,
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
they charge about $400 to list a standard ad on there, but it's about 2% of 20 odd thousand dollars. So I
Yeah.
worked on the 2% model. So I worked at about 4 grand for an average cost of an animal, if it's a dog, for example.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Because yes, it has gone up since COVID, all the averages and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
So it worked out to be about $75. So we're looking at between that 75 and 79 for our
Hmm.
standard ad. So the standard ads, they're a smaller style ad, but still quite a good ad. You get a photo on there, you get a bit of site information, um, and then if you wanted to do a feature ad, it's twice the size,
Wow.
and it's $149. They're all for 30 days. You have the option to actually upgrade them. If you go from a standard, you can go up to a feature listing for 15 or 30 days.
Hmm.
And we have a boost feature as well. So you can actually boost to put your ad back to the top of page one. So it's got either 500 views or 7 days.
Wow.
So there's some different stipulations there as well. So there's different, I guess, options to try to make sure that you get as much visibility as possible.
Hmm.
Uh, but we are also the only site that I know of that will be spending about $50,000 a month on marketing. So
Wow.
the reach or the scope of, I guess, exposure that we're having to have people come to the site is going to be probably, well, from my understanding, the greatest in the market. And
Hmm.
from the ads that I've already run, you know, from a very low cost amount of advertising on
Yeah,
Meta,
yeah.
we've already had about 600,000 or 700,000 impressions.
Hmm.
Um, so it's there's good click. There's about 8% click through rate as well. So it's really good metrics. So we're excited to see where we end up with our
Hmm.
launch. But we're also spending quite a significant on our launch campaign. But that's being restructured at the moment because we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for everyone.
Definitely, definitely. And like many online platforms like Marketplace introduce premium features for additional value. Like, are there any like premium listing or subscription based services on pet sales?
So the breeders, depending on whether you're, and I just want to make a note as well, we will be the only site to have a designated exotic section that's going to have everything in there from the licensing per state, the food, the enclosures, the transport, everything. It'll all be in
Wow.
one easy to find location.
Uh-huh.
And Pet Cover are actually creating a exotic pet insurance as well.
Wow.
So that we can offer the 4 weeks for free, and that will come at a later part in this year. So, that is definitely a point of difference for us.
Hmm.
But breeders will actually be able to have a 12-month membership, and in that 12-month membership, they'll get access to everything. They'll get, list as many listings as you want,
Hmm.
and then there'll be a few other little nuances, I guess, that only those subscriptions get.
Hmm. Crazy, crazy. And beside like pet insurance, are there any other partnership like veterinary partnership that do you want to like integrate into the platform?
we're working on a couple, but I can't talk about them yet.
Okay, okay, for sure, for sure. Great, great. Uh, and also like let's talk a little bit about like marketing. Like, what do you think? Like, what is your strategy is going to be to attract both the pet buyers and reputable breeder to the platform?
I think if you have the breeders there, I think the buyers will come. Um, we have tooted and froed about this quite a fair bit because I come from a very sales orientated background, but we've tried to make everything that we do on the site have
Mm-hmm.
the overarching code of ethics.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we're doing everything ethically and obviously safely for our consumers as well. So we have our national launch campaign, so that'll be step one.
Mm-hmm.
After that, we will also have a small sales team. So that's what I was doing at my previous roles. Is I was sort of like a national sales manager,
Mm-hmm.
and
Basically, you
the
have the previous experience for that.
yeah, I know how to scale a sales orientated cold calling business very
Wow.
quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the scripting, the dialogues that we need to use. So we will have a small sales team that will focus on just going and talking to the 20 odd thousand ish breeders that are across the country.
Wow.
And it's not about convincing them to, that who they're with is bad, because, I think that every site has its pros and cons, and I'm sure ours does as well.
Definitely.
But it's basically just making an offer to those breeders to see whether or not they would like to come and try the platform, to
Mm-hmm.
see whether or not it suits them. And if it does, great. If not, then hey, no worries at all. I guess it's a savvy breeder should know what options they have in the market to make sure they pick the one that suits them best. And that's all we're suggesting.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we will then just continue to scale up with the sales team. And then we will change our marketing strategy sort of every couple of months. So we'll focus on hero mechanisms and things like that, trying to sort of indicate, where we're a little bit different. I guess we'll look at different pairings and different partnerships that we can sort of pair into later on as we go forward. So it's one of those things that it's like a living entity. It continually evolves, and I guess you have to just evolve with it. So I'm one of those people that I like to plan, but we normally plan for the next quarter, and then we'll
Yeah, yeah.
reevaluate depending on how the current quarter goes.
Definitely, definitely. Talking more about the challenges and the lesson you have learned so far, like what do you like every entrepreneur like faces challenges when building a new business or new thing, right? So what do you think like what has been the biggest obstacle in building pet sales for so far?
That I'm only one person, and I have had to realize that I need to allow myself time to rest because I'm really passionate about this. So I don't see it as work, I guess. But
Yeah.
when you try to take on too many things, and especially when you're still learning how to do things, like I never built a website before. Our first website was absolutely terrible, our holding website. The website we have now is still not 100% where I want it to be, but the one I'm currently doing, which will take us through to launch, is,
Mhm.
chalk and cheese from the beginning. But
Mhm.
that's about trial and error, and it's about getting feedback from
Yeah, yeah,
people as
yeah.
well. Um, I guess as well, there's going to be a lot of people out there that so, for example, we approached a venture capitalist business, and I didn't send any pitch deck or anything. I just asked them for 15 minutes of their time.
Mhm.
And without even taking a minute to understand what the entity or the business was, they basically said, we're not interested. There's going to be people out there, you could be the greatest peach in the world, but there's always going to be someone who hates peaches.
Mhm.
So don't take it to heart. Just keep going. Think outside the box.
Mhm.
So one of the things I did is there's like this, it's like a Tinder for loans and equity
Yeah.
financing. And you put your loan scenario, equity scenario on that. And then, like literally within 2 days, I had someone message about it. And look, we
Wow.
don't know whether or not this situation is going to pan out, but we're in the process of figuring it out. And also, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Mhm.
Make sure you do have a backup plan, because you know when you don't have a full-time job and you focus on something full-time, your funds run out very quickly.
Definitely. Definitely. And if you don't really have a backup plan, then it creates more pressure, right?
It does. And then you start the one thing that you don't want to come across is desperate, because you have to remember something. You're the one that came up with the idea. You're
Mm.
the one that came up with that plan, and you're the one that's executed it, and you're the one that's put in the hard yards.
Mm-hmm.
Don't bastardize yourself just to get it across the line. Sometimes it's better to hold out and actually take a step back and maybe go through a little bit of that financial pain just
Mm.
to get that bit forward, so that you don't sort of undercut yourself too much. because I think it's very important to remember what you're worth, no matter what the scenario is.
Definitely, definitely. Um, and like pet sales is still obviously in the early stages, and I'm sure many pet industry professionals are interested in being part of it. So like, how can potential breeders and pet sellers get involved with pet sales before the official launch?
So we do have a lot of people that currently email us and ask, different
Mm.
questions. Anyone that's, any person that's actually made negative comments on any of our Facebook ads, I've actually, if they're a breeder, I've gone and found their phone number and called them myself and actually introduced myself and actually had a conversation.
Yeah.
And each one's turned out to be really positive in the end. I guess my first thing is probably don't make an assumption, ask a
Yeah.
question,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because we're actually not out there just,
Yeah, yeah.
the one thing
Also,
I'm not
like
trying
on
to
the
do.
online space, people just exaggerate things, right? They are just keyboard warrior. They just exaggerate things. It's not their real personality, really.
No, and I think that the hard thing for a lot of people, especially in that animal welfare space, to comprehend is someone can be someone who's got a sales orientated background but still care about the animals. Normally,
Yeah.
the two don't go together.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I care about the animals. I care about the business. I care about my staff. The one thing that I got grilled on by an investor was my salary and also the salary for some of the staff members that I had. And my argument back was, well, I've worked 8 months and I haven't had a single dollar of income, and I've put in 2,500 hours, and the business wouldn't exist without me. I don't think I'm asking a lot to be reimbursed for the time that I've invested. And also with my staff, those staff, I'm going to pay them what they're worth, not what the market dictates what they're worth or indicates what they're worth. Because it's like Richard Branson says, if you look after your staff will look after your business. And if you have less staff and you pay them a little bit more, I guarantee you, and I've seen this time and time again, if you don't treat people like a number, you treat them like you actually care,
Yeah.
they will actually do everything they can to make your business a success. And so a lot of the people that I have coming on board, they're people that I've worked with either in the past or even just in my day-to-day passings or creation of the business. I've come across people and just through conversations, and they've turned out to be really decent people, and I've given them a go. They're not necessarily from the biggest, most expensive companies, but their work ethic and how they approach things was very different. So my operations manager's she's followed me from like two other businesses.
Mhm. Wow. Love it. And last question from my end, Aaron. Find like for pet lovers in Australia who are considering using pet sales, like what message would you like to share and with them, and like what's to come?
Um, I guess the one thing that I just like to ask everyone, or just come over when we launch and just take a look for
Mhm.
yourself,
Yeah.
because I think that that's probably going to speak more than any words that I can.
Hmm.
We have really tried to make it as safe as possible for our customers. The verifications and whatnot, they do a constant update. So if there's any changes, we get notified about it, and those accounts get suspended. So it's not like someone can just register, even if someone's in a family and they have a son, for example, in a household, and he gets done for animal cruelty, and those
Mm.
people are registered at the same household. It will flag with us, and we can shut that account down.
Wow.
So it's
Crazy.
that one step further.
Mm.
Um, you know, the the one thing that I probably didn't mention is the aftercare network, and that's probably the most important thing to do with the ethical side of
Mm.
the pet industry. The Pet Rescue and the RSPCA do an amazing job, but I don't think, or I don't feel they tackle the problem at its source. So they're doing the after effects of when people have gotten all emotional and they've purchased this dog or they've adopted it and then they've taken it home, and then the dog's peeing everywhere or it's whining or it's doing this, and they're not prepared
Mm.
to handle the dog and the situation. They also haven't factored in the cost. It costs about 10 grand over 5 years to own a dog. So it's about 130 to 160 bucks a month, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you have registration and when you have fees and when you have Netflix and all this stuff coming out, suddenly you don't have $130 a month sometimes. And you want to go and obviously get pet insurance on top of it. That's cost more money. There's a huge portion of Australians that don't have pet insurance, which is ridiculous.
Mm. Mm.
So we've got pop-ups that will come every 4 or 5 pages, and they
Mm.
talk about, did you know? So the cost over 5 years is this. There'll be a little calculator. Let's put in your current expenses. Let's see how much money you've got
Wow.
to afford it.
Mm.
Um, Other things about, what to do with animals, did you know this? Did you know that?
Mm.
We'll have all sorts of animals on the site. So it'll be, dogs and cats and birds and fish. Um, them will also have the exotic side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the aftercare network is what we're creating to reduce the dumping and rehoming. There was a model that was done overseas that I saw, and I've tried to sort of take bits of that and create our own. So it's going to be a 24-hour hotline that all new pet parents can call
Wow.
any time of the day if they're having issues. It will offer moral support, it'll offer mental health support, but it will also offer veterinarian assistance
Mm-hmm.
where needed. We will provide the first 3 sessions in the first 6 weeks for free to assist. Now, the first session as well, you'll be able to book in when you do your balance to pay, along with your pet cover and dog trainers. The sides of things if you want to go with those companies as well. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll actually be able to book your first at-home or welcome home consult. So the vets will actually be able to have a chat to you right when you bring them home to run through everything, make sure that you're all prepped and ready.
Yeah.
And we're in talks with the government to potentially get some funding, and that's our give back to try and assist to trying to lower the rate by about 23 to 25%. If we can do that, we will save the taxpayers about $337 million a year. And we've
Wow.
asked the government to, or we're in talks with them to try to reinvest some of that money back into mental health initiatives like anxiety and depression, because animals can lower it by up to 50%. If
Yeah,
they then
definitely.
take some of that
Mm-hmm.
money to go to shelters to buy more animals, to train through like Therapy Dogs Australia as companion animals, and do a return to work program where we integrate people with anxiety and depression that are on social security
Wow.
back into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
In New South Wales alone, I think I worked it out, it would save about $500 million a year. So between those two, it's about nearly $1 billion a year in Australia that we could save just from one business, all leveraging off
Crazy.
existing holes in the market and nothing else.
Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Amazing. So Aaron, like, could you share like any recognition or allocates like received for the services you have implemented for pet sales?
Any recognition. So we did win a global recognition award
Mm-hmm.
for the disruption of a marketplace or an industry, and also for our innovative sort of security and tech.
Mm-hmm.
And we're
Wow.
actually a finalist. I know it was amazing to receive, and we also are a finalist in the a small Australian Small Business Champion Awards for the pet industry
Crazy.
here. So I think that's drawn next month in Sydney at the Star Casino. So we're really excited about that. So we haven't launched yet, and we're still being recognised for the
Mm-hmm.
amazing work that we're doing, which is great.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. Aaron, this has been an incredible conversation, and thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey, insight, and vision for pet sales.
Thank you. I've really appreciated it.
It's definitely like inspiring to see like how you're working to revolutionize the online marketplace in Australia, and like ensuring a safer and more transparent experience for pet lovers everywhere. Anyone listening who wants to learn more or get involved, be sure to check out petsales.com.au and stay tuned for their official launch. Whether you are a breeder or a pet professional or someone looking for a new furry companion, Pet Sales is definitely a platform to watch. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in for Pet Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow pet enthusiast and entrepreneur. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and most importantly, keep making a difference in the pet industry.